All right, let's come back to the other session here. Let me check if it works okay. Yes, it does. So far, so good. All right, let's go to page 15, Arabic number 6, the destruction of the Assyrians, but it is subdivided here between verses 30, 27, and 33. So it's subdivided here. We start with Jehovah's indignation against all the nations. Circle on your outline, all the nations. Come with me. Behold, the name of Jehovah comes from a remote place, burning in his anger and dense in his smoke. His lips are filled with indignation, and his tongue is like a consuming fire. His breath is like an overflowing torrent, which it reaches to the neck, to shake the nations, circle that, plural, back and forth in a sieve, and to put in the jaws of the peoples, circle peoples, plural, the brittle, which leads to ruin. Okay, that's from 27 to 29 here. Lowercase a, parenthetical a, Jehovah's indignation against all the nation. It is God that will ultimately free people, not the opposite. It is God that will ultimately free his people, not the opposite. They cannot free themselves. In verses 27 to 28, when you can circle burning in his anger, dense in his smoke, filled with tongue like a consuming fire, here we have a short picture of the second coming of the Messiah when he comes with the Shekinah glory. And when he comes back, this will be part of God's judgment against all Gentile nations. So basically put verses 27 and 28, compare this with chapter 3 of Isaiah. The entire chapter 3, where you have a full picture of this. And the purpose of his coming here is to sift the nations. Sift the nations with a sieve of destruction. What's the main point of verses 27 to 28? It's that God will have indignation against all the nations. God will have indignation against all the nations. And Isaiah here just says 2 verses on it. And guess what? He will soon develop this in chapter 34. Go to page 16 for a quick moment. As soon as you're done writing, go to page 16 of your outlines and look at capital E, Jehovah's indignation against all the nations. Okay? He will come back to this. He just said a few words there, and he will come back to this, which is, Debbie, the day of the great slaughter. And do you remember something relating to the life of Christ and relating to Revelation? That's there, that they will have the judgment of the sheep and the goats. Those who will help the Jews in the great trib, and those who will be anti-Semitic in the great trib. That's the judgment of the Gentiles, and you're not partaking in it. Once again, on using my whiteboard, consistency, all the events fit together. At the Great Tribulation, at the end of it, there will be the judgment of the Gentiles. Sheep on the right, goats on the left, and he will say to the sheep, inherit my kingdom for 1,000 years, this eternal damnation. Consistency. Okay, he will develop that later. We will hit that at the fall. Before the end of November, we will reach, I think, I think we will reach chapter 34. Verse 29, you will have a song as in the night when you keep the festival. That's a new Passover song. Because the night there, it's the night of the Passover. References. Exodus chapter 12, verse 42. And Matthew chapter 26, verse 30. The emphasis is on the night.
Matthew what?
Pardon me?
Matthew what?
26:30. Now we come to parenthetical B, Jehovah's indignation against Assyria properly. So from 30 to 33. Come with me. This you will like tonight. But you what?
Did not finish 29.
I did not finish 29? You're right. You will have a song as in the night festival, as in when you keep the festival, and gladness of heart as when marches to the sound of the flute, to go to the mountain of Jehovah, the rock of Israel. Thank you so much, because the mountain of Jehovah, it's the mountain of the 1,000-year kingdom, who is the rock, always the second person of the triune God, when you have rock, capital R. That's the rock that hit the statue in Daniel 2 of Nebuchadnezzar. The little rock that hit the statue, the brass Hellenistic Empire, and the rock hits the statue, Sylvie, so everything crumbles. Messianic kingdom. Lowercase b, Jehovah's indignation against Assyria. We read, we circle. I have slides for this there and there. It's not the hippo. Something else is after that, but I want to concentrate of the reading. And Jehovah will cause his voice of authority to be heard. And the descending of his arm is to be seen in fierce anger, and in the flame of a consuming fire, in cloudburst, downpour, and hailstone. For at the voice of Jehovah, look, Assyria will be terrified. Circle that. When he strike with the rod. And every blow of the rod of punishment which the Lord will lay on him will be with music of tambourines and lyres, and in battles, brandishing weapons, he will fight them. For Topheth, circle carefully, Topheth has long been ready. Indeed, it has been prepared for the king. Circle for Topheth has long been ready. Indeed, it has been prepared for the king, and he has made it deep and large, and pyre of fire with plenty of wood. The breath of Jehovah, like a torrent of brimstone, set it afire. Whew. Let's go. Let's take this. Probably would close the night with this in a moment of time. Now he localizes it against Assyria in particular. He talks about a judgment, but now he localizes it, Assyria. And the point is easy, that what God will be doing in the future, in a near future, he will do the same with Assyria. Sylvie, in the time of Isaiah. What he will do against all the nations at the end of the Great Trib, he will do to a lower scale, if you want. That would be kind of a nice expression, to Assyria. In verses 30 to 33. Look at something. Go to page 17 on your outline. Now what I just read to you, verses 30 to 33, will be further developed in 36 and 37. Hezekiah and the Assyrian. And when you go to 37, the delegation of Isaiah's response, the letter to Sennacherib, the prayer of Hezekiah. So 30, 31, 32, and 33, just a few verses, later to be expounded. Back to page 14. Back to page 15. All right? Later to be expounded. The king of Assyria will be terrified and he will lose his battle. 31 and 32. I just read it. In verse 33, for Topheth has long been ready, indeed it has been prepared for the king, and so on. Now he alludes to Topheth. Let's note this. I'm going to read this slide for you. Okay? Under Jehovah's indignation against Assyria, we come to Topheth. Circle Topheth. Topheth is the same as the valley of Hinnom. I will show you in a moment where it's located. You've been there, Louis. And Sylvie, you've been there. The valley of Hinnom here means a place of continual burning. Where bad kings offered human sacrifice to the god Molech. You can find examples of this in 2 Kings 23:10. Look, Sylvie, Jeremiah 7:31-32, where they will burn human sacrifice, which will bring the Babylonian captivity. And in verses 19, in chapter 19 rather, verses 4-6. And Topheth and the valley of Hinnom here becomes a symbol of hell. Okay? Because you have the valley of Hinnom. When you want to say that in Hebrew, you say Gay Hinnom. Okay? Gay Hinnom. That's why we use the expression burning in hell, because that's the place of burning. And in the New Testament, you have the Greek form from which we have Gay Hinnom called Gehenna. La Géhenne en français. So we get the word French or Greek Gehenna from Gay Hinnom, because Gay Hinnom, the valley of Hinnom, becomes the place of burning, where kings such as King Manasseh was offering his sons in sacrifice and so on. This is Topheth, this is Gay Hinnom, and so on. You've been there, because if you turn the camera here to the right, you can see Mount Zion Hotel. Okay? The Temple Mount is right here. Where's the Temple Mount? That's the temple. And right at the south of it, you have a deep valley with these rocks here. That's exactly where they were offering sacrifice, most likely right here in that sector here. And Topheth was a little locale within the valley called Topheth. That's where they were using human sacrifice. Now that picture is taken from the Temple Mount. It's the valley right here. The valley of Hinnom is Mount of Olives and stuff. The valley of Hinnom is right here. Look at your Bible and you will find the valley of Hinnom. So pardon me?
Where's the Mount of Olives from there?
The Mount of Olives basically is on the left there. If I take my camera like this, I look east and you see the Mount of Olives right there. Okay, on these pictures. But if I take my camera like this, I look west of the hills of Jerusalem and so on. And this is south, and if I look north, I look at the Temple Mount. Okay? So that's the valley right there where the road is here. And this is very steep, Sylvie. Do you remember when you go down there to go back to the hotel? So this is very steep. And here somewhere, of course, you need to dig because it's been destroyed. here somewhere, probably where the road was, it's the extreme south of the valley. That's where Isaiah was there. He prophesied from there. Can you imagine him being right here under the tree with his beard and so on, and raising his voice, giving the prophecies? That's exactly what happened. When you travel to Israel, you need a shovel. Because in 586 BC, it was all destroyed in debris. So that's why when you travel the Holy Land, it's called Tel Aviv. Tel Dan, Tel this and Tel Dan, not Tel T-E-L-L, but T-E-L. Tel, it's destroyed, rebuilt. Destroy, rebuilt. And with the destroy, you make a mound of debris. That's a Tel. Okay? That's the geography. Tel is a geography thing of ancient Middle East, where there was a city, Jericho, destroy, rebuild. Rebuild. Okay? So that's where, concerning the Assyrians here, that's what will happen to them. I give you the scriptures on the slide, and it became a symbol of hell. Basically, what is Isaiah is saying to the Assyrian king here, hell is already ready for you. So that's why he used that. Topheth has long been ready, and so on and so forth. I have something interesting to tell you concerning that here on a different slide here. In the literal Hebrew, verse 33a says Topheth built yesterday, was prepared yesterday. I checked that today with Olga, that's what it says. Topheth was prepared yesterday. And the rabbis, they came up because of the word yesterday, that hell was created on the second day, because that's the only occasion that you can have a yesterday. So if you interview the rabbi, they are well acquainted with this here, and they will ask them, where was hell created? They will say, on the second day. And when you read in Genesis, your second day, it does not say, and it was good. That's why they give the reason. It's purely rabbinic though. But the second day doesn't say, and it was good, because hell was created on that day for them. It's rabbinic. I repeat, it's rabbinic. It's probably not the truth. But the yesterday for them was this. They go with reference to the Genesis account. All right. That's the rabbis say that hell was created on the second day, because that's the only place where you can have, going back, that you can have a yesterday about the creation and so on. Okay? Make your notes concerning that. And now we can take, just to finish with 3 verses, we can take Arabic number 7, the second woe against the alliance. Take a deep breath, 3 verses, we go home at 8:15, 8:20, the max. All right? So now we come to basically chapter 31, the second woe alliance, because that's what we call the book of woes. 1, 2, 3. Come. Woe, circle woe, verse 1 of 31. To those who go down to Egypt for help and rely on horses, and trust in chariots because they are many, and in horsemen because they are very strong. But they do not look to the Holy One of Israel, nor seek Jehovah. Yet he also is wise and will bring disaster, and does not retract his words, but will arise against the house of evildoers and against the help of the workers of iniquity. Now the Egyptians are men, circle are men, not God, and their horses are flesh and not spirit. So the Lord will stretch out his hand, and he who helps will stumble, circle helps will stumble, and he who is help will fall. And all of them will come to an end together. We finish with this. The second woe is against relying on Egypt or the Egyptian power. It's nothing. You see, it talks about horses. It's perfect. It's like the internet, armament. Because the armament at that time was horsemen and horses and chariots and so on. And if you go to the Knesset, that's what they rely upon. Their jets, the training that they receive, the commitment of their soldiers that are very patriotic and so on. This is not where their help has to be placed. Okay? The emphasis on chapter 31 is on the assurance of the judgment of chapter 30. It's going to be carried out. So in 31, the emphasis in 31 is on the assurance of the judgment of chapter 30. That's why God says here, and he will also be wise in verse 2 and does not retract his words, but will rise against the house of evildoer. So basically, he will bring his word to pass. That's the point of verse 2. God will not call back his words. When he says that has been decreed, so be it. In verse 3, it's quite easy. Now the Egyptians are men and not God. Their horses are flesh and not spirit. So the Lord will stretch out his hand, and he who helps will stumble, and he who is help will fall, and so on. So simply put, they are men, not God. And their horses are flesh, not spirit. And simply put, that the Assyrian flesh is stronger than the help of Egypt. So both the helpers, Egypt if you want, and the help, Israel, will fall together. So what's the lesson? Rely on me. And it's so difficult nowadays to trust him with a pure, genuine faith. It's difficult. So in verses 1, 2, and 3, he summarized what he detailed earlier concerning the failure of the alliance with Egypt. I repeat. In verses 1 and 3, which we just studied right now, he summarized what he said earlier about the failure of this alliance. It will not work. It will not work. And next week, we will take the program of Israel's redemption, 4 to 9. I want to spare you from that to become fresh next week and so on. Next week, are you there, Debbie? No way. Okay, Debbie will be missing for a month, so pray for them and so on. They're going on a trip. But you'll come back, Debbie. When you come back, okay, beautiful. Unless you're raptured and we're left behind with our studies, tape, and so on.
You know, it's getting darker at night.